Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living the Midlife Dream. Today's guest has an absolutely remarkable story, starting with the fact that she lived in a refugee camp in Austria from ages 11 through 13. At age 13, she arrived in the U.S. and went on to get her degree in computer science and then became a serial entrepreneur and investor. On top of that, she's a mom and, safe to say, also a fitness inspiration as she shed over 80 pounds in her mid 40s. That's amazing. Terry, you're going to have to say your last name again. Can you?
Tateossian.
Tateossian is here today to share her story of perseverance, transformation, and empowerment. Terry, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you, Danielle, for having me. It's a pleasure. I can't wait to talk to you.
I know. My God, I've started doing the research on you and I'm just like blown away. You are one remarkable woman. I can't wait to talk to you. So
Thank
let's
you so
just
much.
dig in here. Let's just start with the big one here. You spent your ages 11 through 13 in a refugee camp. Can you share what that experience was like for you and how has shaped where you are today in life?
Absolutely. So I can't really say it was that detrimental or traumatizing for me at that age. As you know, children are very adaptable and they just go with the flow with whatever life throws at them. So, was it hard in terms of missing my family, my friends, living a completely different lifestyle in a sense, but at the time I did not really think of it that way. It was just this adventure and I was
Hmm,
just learning new languages, doing different things, meeting new people, making new friends. Was it hard for my parents? Yes, it was
can
very
imagine.
difficult. Yes.
How do you have siblings?
I do. So I have a brother and a sister who are twins. They're about 7 years younger than me, but they were
Oh,
not
wow.
with us in the refugee camp. They actually had
Okay.
to stay back.
Oh,
And so they joined us 2 years later on our way to the United States as legal, naturalized citizens.
wow. Amazing. And here you are in midlife. Fast forward.
Yes.
So, going through your Instagram, it's clear that you are a midlife woman that obviously prioritizes health and fitness. Has this always been the case, or was there like a clear turning point for you?
Yes. So it back in the day, since from when I can remember myself, you could not pay me enough to run. I have so many funny stories about having to run to get on a train, and I would refuse. I never really went to a gym. It just wasn't part of the culture that I grew up in. It wasn't part of the lifestyle. I had never lifted weights. I didn't even know what DB stood for dumbbell in my program. I had no clue about anything when I started. I was a complete beginner.
You were a complete beginner. So, but was there a turning point in your life where you were like, okay, I got to turn things around here? Was there like a pivotal moment?
There were multiple pivotal moments, which I ignored mostly because I did not have time for that, right? And so being in the middle of running a business, having two young children at the time, family, friends, mostly a lot of working, I did not necessarily have even the awareness or the time, or I believed I did not have the time, and I did not address any of those issues. So I ended up in the hospital the first time with chest pains because I thought I was having a heart attack. And there is heart disease in my family as well as type 2 diabetes. And unbeknownst to me, by the time I was 37, I was actually starting to have pre-diabetic markers and a lot of other kinds of heart palpitations and things like that. And so one day I started having chest pains right in the middle of my kitchen. They rushed to the hospital. They took one look at me and they said, yep, go immediately into the exam room, which of course got me even more stressed out because there were
Yeah.
over 100 people waiting in the waiting room, and they looked a lot worse than I did. I mean, I was clutching my chest, but I got in ahead of everybody. So now I was even more terrified. And eventually they couldn't find anything. They sent me to a cardiologist, and the cardiologist did hear a heart murmur, but it wasn't anything that would have caused a stroke or a heart attack. And so I did not listened to those signs, I went right back to normal in quotes, existence, and right back to the stress, overworking, overeating, over drinking, all those things. And eventually it happened again. And this time I got a little bit more scared that this was not going to go away the way I was figuring it was going to. And no, I was gonna have to make time for it to figure out what was going on.
And obviously you did that. And you went on to lose over 80 pounds in your mid 40s. That's incredible.
Yes.
So I always enjoy hearing about everyone's workout routines. I love it. So I was wondering if you could give us walk us through what your current workout routine is right now.
Okay, so my current workout routine, and this is coming this is coming after being in a build and maintenance
Uh,
for about 2 years.
okay.
And so the training and the nutrition plans or strategy is dependent on the phase that you're in. So what I'm currently doing may not necessarily be the best approach for every single person. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there. The history, just so you have framework, my history is that I lost the initial, was in an initial fat loss state for about a year where I lost 80 pounds. Actually, it was in 2 years, I lost 80 pounds. And then from there, I went on to build more muscle, right? So there were multiple building phases where I was eating in a caloric surplus, and then I was maintaining that weight for a prolonged period of time, followed by mini cuts. What that means, it's a very short period of a cut just to keep the body fat down. And so I've been in this cycle of builds, long periods of maintenance with very small cuts. Currently, I am going through another big cut. Right. So at this time, I am 150 pounds with a very different body composition than when I was 150 pounds, let's say during my weight loss journey. There's a lot more muscle, a lot less fat. And so currently I lift weights 4 times a week and I do cardio 7 times a week. And I try to get between 8 to 15,000 steps per day. My calories are a lot less now because I am in the process of losing body fat than they were at the end of my build, for example. So at the end of my build, when I was actively looking to gain muscle mass, I was probably eating about 240 grams of carbs per day
Yum.
with quite a significant amount of protein, usually about 180 grams of protein per day. But I don't want anyone listening to this thinking that applying what I'm doing is the right approach for them because every person is very different and their journey is very different.
Absolutely. No, I just love, I love I could talk about workout and fitness and routines all day long. So I just think it's fun. I know you said right now you're in a cut. Can you explain to the listener how your build went and exactly what does that mean when you say you're in a build?
Mhm. So in a build, goal is to retain and build more muscle tissue while trying to keep body fat down and keeping your waist circumference as low as possible. So in a build, you're normally eating about, I would say, 10 to 15% more calories than your maintenance calories. So your maintenance calories are where the goal would be to maintain your body weight and to maintain your measurements, right? So your bust, your waist, your hips, and your thighs, you want to maintain how many inches for each one, and you want to maintain your body weight while eating as much as possible, right? So the goal is always, even in a cut, is to eat as much food as your body, your metabolism can handle at that time. And that benchmark actually changes over time, right? So the more muscle we have, the more we can eat. And so in the build, you're looking to gain about 0.5 pounds per month. So half a pound a month of weight gain. You're looking That's generally your goal. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, but you're eating in a surplus. So normally the surplus includes more protein, more carbs, and about the same amount of fat as usual.
So, obviously you have to be motivated. You have to have discipline to do all this, especially to go through a cut, I think, because I just think that's a little bit, it's harder. You've been building and you're able to have all this surplus, like you said, of calories, and now we're going to cut down. So, do you have any tips or tricks, or like if you can share any advice on how you stay motivated and disciplined with your
Yes.
workouts and fitness?
So my experience was very interesting because my initial cut wasn't difficult for me. I was okay with the cut. My body was ready, right? So being overweight for so long, my body was just so happy to be dropping body fat. So I didn't really have a difficult time with that. What I did find, however, is that the build was a lot more taxing on me. All of the builds actually that I've done were a lot more difficult for whatever reason because I was exhausted the entire time. And so looking back on the builds, I'm thinking now that, eating that much more food and especially protein, my body had to work extra hard. But then I did feel really strong in the gym. At one point, I joke around. I was scaring myself with how strong I was getting, and I attribute that to the high amount of carbs that I was able to intake. And so the heart training, physically tired, and having to digest all that food was just exhausting for whatever reason. It was more difficult than a cut. But right now, I have been in a maintenance or a surplus for so long that being in this cut, this is my second big cut, right? And in the period of, I would say about 6 years. So I haven't really been on a diet for quite a while. And my body is just okay. Like I feel great. I have a little bit more energy because I don't have to digest a lot of food anymore.
Yeah.
But I am seeing the difference in the gym, right? So I don't feel
Yeah.
as strong in the gym as far as how much weight I can currently do.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you have any advice for the midlife women? I was just talking with someone the other day about, a lot of women in midlife get intimidated. We all see this on social media that, I feel like at least my algorithm shows me a lot of midlife women working out, lifting weights, talking about the weighted vest, get the steps in, get away from the cardio. But just because, you see it there, it doesn't mean you're not still intimidated to go into a gym or to even start a fitness journey. So, do you have any advice that you would give someone that's like, I really want to get in shape, but I'm scared, I'm nervous to even walk into a gym?
You don't actually have to go to a gym. So the first few years, I worked out of my garage, out of my house. All you need is resistance bands, adjustable dumbbells, and a cheap barbell from Walmart, for example.
Mhm.
They're about $80. You buy a few plates, and in the very beginning, you don't need any more than that because between the resistance bands, the adjustable dumbbells, and the barbell, you can do everything you really need to do as far as resistance training. Now, as far as weighted vests, and
Mhm.
cardio, it's a very tricky subject because it really depends on the woman's history of her fitness. So if you have a woman who has been in a deficit for a really long time, she has been doing a lot of cardio for years, maybe her entire life, and has not really focused on her protein, the approach to that type of transformation or that type of lifestyle change would be very different from
Mhm.
to someone who has been in a surplus for a very long time, has body fat to lose, and has not really been exercising, right?
Yeah.
So I something that I have learned over time is that looking at social media and seeing what other people are doing does not necessarily mean it's going to work for you. It does not necessarily mean that that's the right approach for where somebody else is at. It really depends on what your body has been through and what you have been doing in the last few years in order to figure out how to change that, right? And so I meet a lot of women that are underweight. They're underweight and they're overtrained. And then I meet a lot of women that are overweight and undertrained, for example. So very different approaches. But do you need a weighted vest? I don't know. Probably not.
No, not to get started, that's for sure. Or it might be a really easy way to get into having some resistance in your life. Like get a weighted vest on and go for a walk. Couldn't be easier. Less, it doesn't really cost much either. But I love that advice that you first gave of just, you don't need to join a gym. You can do so much at home and you'll gain confidence because you're doing so much at home. You're going to start to see results and then you'll have that confidence. And if you want to go to the gym and start using those machines or squat racks, all that fun stuff that's at the gym, you can do that. I have,
Absolutely.
yeah, I have heard you in my research speak a little bit about self-sabotage, and I know myself, I have definitely experienced self-sabotage. I'm wondering, have you? And if you so, how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, the self-sabotage battle is daily, right? And so it loves to show up at very unexpected times. It loves to show up when things are going really well or when you have really legitimate reasons why you should stray away from this new lifestyle that you're trying to build. And in the very beginning, for anybody that's starting out, I would expect it to show up multiple times a day, right? And it's sneaky. It shows up in camouflage. It shows up as a very kind voice sometimes. It shows up as a very unkind voice sometimes, but it undoubtedly shows up. And so anyone that's starting a fitness journey, my advice is to always expect it and have a plan. For me, self-sabotage showed up in every possible way you can imagine, and it won quite a number of times because I failed so many times. I failed more times than I succeeded, okay? But really all you need is one time. You just have to win one time.
Yeah.
And you learn from that particular experience so that you don't make the same mistakes again. And so I failed in every possible way you can imagine. I fell off track with the gym. I fell off track with my nutrition, completely abandoned my coaching relationship multiple times. I've done it all. And so the expectation that you're going to start and your motivation is going to be at 100% every day. Your compliance rate is going to be at 100% every day. And that you're going to adhere to every single thing you're supposed to do is completely unrealistic, in my opinion, because there's so much going on when you're trying to change your lifestyle, right? And so having that expectation of 100% success rate at the very beginning is actually self-sabotage if you think
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah.
because it creates this pressure cooker inside of you, like in your energy. It creates a perfectionistic type of mentality. You start looking at things as all in or all out. That's total self-sabotage.
I do
And,
that.
God forbid a cookie ends up in your mouth. It's not going to be just the cookie now, right?
Yeah.
So the self-sabotage is going to be like, oh, you screwed this whole thing up. Might as well have the whole box. And that's not really how progress is made, right? And, are you going to fail? Yes.
But that's how
Are
we
you?
grow.
Absolutely. Are you going to be imperfect? Yes, yes, a 100%. And that's the road. Those are the stripes that you earn in order to get to the success line. Because without that, you're not going to learn the signs, the signals, what the symptoms are that you're about to fall off track, because there's signs before it happens, right? Before the binge cycle comes, there are signs. And so when you don't go through that path, it's very hard to create a sustainable lifestyle because you're not learning anything, right? So for example, I'll give you an example. So let's say I have a client who really wants to change their lifestyle. Let's say they're very committed to the idea. And the first time that they fall off track is the last time they fall off track, and they just let the whole thing go. Instead of saying, okay, I fell off track. Why? What contributed to this? What were the events that took place? Maybe my schedule is not conducive to training 5 times a week. Maybe I bring it down to 3. Maybe I shift some things around. Maybe I time block. Maybe I prep my meals 3 days in advance, or I pre-order meals from a meal prepping company. Maybe I change my work hours to accommodate for XYZ and then try again, right? And then every time you fail, you make more adjustments and you try again and you try again and again. And it's not really discipline and motivation, in my opinion. It's really commitment. It's the
Mhm.
commitment to solving the problems that are in your way to this path that you have chosen.
That is great advice, really great advice. And I think it's a little bit of that needs to be normalized. I think that, we normally set the bar so high, at least that's what I do to myself. I'll set the bar so high. And like you just said, that's probably self-sabotage right there. You're setting this high bar. And then when you don't meet it, it's like, oh, I failed. And I just think too, we need to normalize the fact that most people, like, you have to talk to yourself in a positive way. You got to like pick it back up. You got to push through. I definitely think, even myself, I love working out. I love all of this stuff, but I don't wake up like, oh my God, running to the gym. Of course, I want to just hang out in my robe, my slippers, my coffee. Who doesn't? But I think you have to get that mentality of like, it's always going to be a little bit of you got to push yourself to do stuff. So I appreciate that about the self-sabotage. I think you had great advice there. Thank you.
And you don't have to work out in the morning.
I know, but I can't work out at night. And actually, you know what? Today, this morning, I had to drive my son to the airport really early, so I didn't do my morning. So now, I have to work out after this, and I'm like, it's hanging over my head. I'm just not. Maybe that's something I need to push myself through, and say, yes, you can. You can work out later, but I don't know. I have it in my head, like I don't know how the people do it that work out at night. My hat goes off to them. But anyway, let's shift gears. I want you to tell me about the company that you started. Thor. Do you pronounce it as Thor?
Yeah,
Thor?
sure.
Okay. Yeah, tell me all about it. Sounds cool.
So about 2 years ago, so Thor's going to be actually 3 years old this year, but about 2 years ago, kind of it just happened like an accidental kind of thing. And a few of us were created our own retreat 2 years ago. And we invited yoga practice, spa therapy, meditation, hiking, really great macro based food. And
Hmm.
so it kind of took off on its own. And then people started really they're starting to come back, actually. Guests that would have come in previous years are now coming back. And so we end up spending about 4 full days, or about 4 nights, 5 days on the Smoky Mountains at the top of the mountain, doing all kinds of wellness activities, talking about all kinds of things, whatever's happening in people's lives, and spending time in nature. And it's been my love project, as I call it, because it truly is everything that encompasses well-being for emotional health, mental health, and physical health is included in each of the retreats. And it's my love child.
Sounds amazing.
Thank you.
It's your love child. I love it. Okay, so I'll put all about that in the show notes. I know you have a website for that. Are they ongoing retreats, or do you do like one a year, or how does that work?
They're ongoing retreats. There's one every month starting in
Oh,
February and ending in October. There's, I think, about 13 retreats this year. Some of them are hosted and led by other yogis and other fitness professionals. And so other people run their own retreats with their own themes and their own guests. And then I run my own because I just really, truly enjoy that. It is a purpose-driven, mission-driven type of company. And so I run my own retreats, which include strength training and resistance training and those kinds of components. But there are other retreats that other people run that are more focused on Pilates and yoga and hiking and chakra healing and things like that. And so, yeah, you can find more information at thehouseofrose.com. If you have any questions, you can email me, Terry, Terry, at thehouseofrose.com.
okay. And I'll put all that in the show notes too. But it sounds really cool. I'm definitely gonna. I think I'm gonna have to do that.
Awesome. Would love to
Yeah.
have you.
That'd be fun. Speaking of wellness, what is one wellness habit that you swear by that you think more people should try? Do you have anything off the top of your head?
100% strength training.
Yes, they have
Strength
to do it.
training and protein.
Okay. And last question I have for you. What is one thing that you absolutely cannot live without in midlife? It could be anything from, I've heard lip gloss, I've heard chocolate, I heard a phone, whatever you can
Oh,
think of.
wow. I do
Yeah.
love my phone, I won't lie. Yeah, I mean, I'd be lost without my phone because it provides my strength training program, it provides my macro tracker.
Yeah. I know. How
It
did we do this?
Yes, it would make, and that's the other thing I want to say about this, okay? Back in the day, so like when I was in my 20s, physical training and like bodybuilding and strength training, or for example, when I was in my teens, my biggest fear of lifting weights was the cliche of like, oh, I'm
Yes.
gonna look like a man, right? And so and a lot of the exercises that were available, because there's no social media back then, so I couldn't even copy anybody's workout, is if I ever went to the gym to do cardio on the elliptical or whatever, I would just see all the guys in the weight room and the exercises that they were doing and, the shrugs and all the upper body things. And I think one time I tried to do strength training and I started seeing my traps getting like really popping. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, there was no way I could have been this educated and this like supported in this way that I am now, that we have all this software and all this technology. So, in a sense, I feel like there's really no excuse for anybody not knowing what to do, be from what kind of training to do, how to structure your food. There's macro tracking apps. Imagine having to do that by hand.
I know. Do you know what's interesting is I just found my grandmother's, well, I didn't just find, I have a box of all of her recipes, my Italian Nana, all of her recipes. And in there, she used to be always doing Weight Watchers. And I found a notepad and she wrote down, it was just like how we do it in our trackers. It wasn't macros, but it was like, it was all by calories, or she would write down what she ate. In a sense, it made me a little sad thinking of my grandmother doing that because I know that it was always a struggle for her. But I just thought it was so interesting. Like, oh my God. And also, you don't think of your mom or your grandmother like that. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, that's Nana. Oh, she doesn't need to lose weight. Like, you know what I mean? But I thought it was so interesting that I found this. I still have it, the notepad of her, one egg, one piece of toast, and then she put like something about margarine on the toast or whatever. But yeah, we would have to be using notepads. We'd all be walking around with notepads. So luckily
Yes.
we have our phones.
Yeah,
But
it's so
anyway,
much easier now.
yeah.
And, just there's that kind of sticking point, like that friction in the process back in the day when everything was done by hand, or, even like the programs, like the first program I received that I purchased online was actually from Brett Contreras, and it was his
Oh yeah.
booty program. It
Yeah.
came in a PDF,
Yeah.
right? So I had to print it out and I had to, and it was, it listed all the exercises, but there was no video attached to it. So I had no idea what that was. I had to look things up. It was a lot more complicated.
Yeah, right.
Right? And so now we have all these tools at our fingertips, and the biggest sticking point and the biggest friction point in the whole journey is our mindset at this point,
Yeah.
because there's no other excuse at this, in this day and age. Pretty soon we might even have clones that are going to do the exercises for us.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, you're so right though. The phone is good. That's amazing. Great tip. Okay. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Was a fun conversation. You are a wealth of knowledge. I will put all of your information in the show notes, but if you want to share real quick where people can find, where's the best place for people to find you if they want to follow you?
You can find me on my website, thehouseofrose.com. You can also find me on Instagram, How Good Can It Get? And there's also a podcast, Spotify and Apple. It's also called How Good Can It Get? You can email me, you can call me. If you have any questions, let me know. You
And a
can actually,
smoke signal, whatever
I
you
will
got.
find you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You guys, if you like this episode, please rate it, review it, please share it with a friend, and we will see you next week.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Danielle.